Morning from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to our coverage of U.S. EVA number 27 here on NASA TV. Looking now inside of the International Space Station Flight Control Room as the Orbit 1 team gets ready to hand over to Orbit 2 as we move closer to the start of this spacewalk. Coming up, scheduled to start in a little over an hour from now, the two rookie spacewalkers inside of the Quest airlock as we speak, doing the final suit-up preparations. As mentioned, this is U.S. EVA 27, the 182nd EVA in support of station construction and maintenance. It'll be the 5th spacewalk this year. There's already been 3 Russian. This will be the second U.S. one of 2014. Again, this now a live view inside of the Quest airlock. We can see our 2 crew members, Alexander Gerst on the bottom of the screen, and at the top, Reed Wiseman. Again, both first-time spacewalkers today. Reed Wiseman will be designated EV1. He'll be wearing a suit with red stripes on it to be easily identifiable once they're outside of station airlocks and operating in the vacuum of space. Alexander Gerst from the European Space Agency will be EV2. He'll be wearing a suit with no stripes. As mentioned, the 2 inside of the Quest airlock right now in the final stages of preparation before the beginning of this EVA. Scheduled to start at 7:15 a.m. Central Time. The 2 in the latter stages of their in-suit light exercise. This a protocol done prior to an EVA to help purge the nitrogen from the blood before the astronauts head outside. The extravehicular mobility unit, or EMU, the large white spacesuits that they are wearing, operate kind of as their own small spaceship, if you will. The suit pressure inside all the way down to 4.3 psi. This much lower than the nominal operating pressure inside of the International Space Station, which is the same as what we have here at sea level on the Earth at 14.7 psi. So that done to allow for much easier movement for the astronauts once they're inside of the suit. They won't have to fight against it as much. But in order to protect them from what is commonly called the bends, decompression sickness, the astronauts will do this in-suit light exercise for about 2 hours and 20 minutes, breathing the increased oxygen and doing some light exercises. You'll see them moving their arms around, moving their legs. This again just to purge the nitrogen from their blood. Helping them out is recent crew member addition Butch Wilmore. Right now he is coordinating their suit up, and he'll be operating the station's robotic arm. Alexander Gerst will be getting a ride on the end of the space station's robotic arm, Canadarm2, and Wilmore will be operating it from inside of the U.S. Destiny Laboratory. And meanwhile, here inside the room, as mentioned at the open of the show, the Orbit 1 team getting ready to hand over to Orbit 2. Once Orbit 2 comes on, Scott Stover, looks like he walked away for a moment, but Royce Renfrew there at the bottom, the Orbit 1 flight director, will be handing over to Scott Stover. The voices you'll hear talking to the crew from the ground. There's Scott Stover coming over now in the blue shirt. Up at the top of your screen now will be the Capcom for Orbit 2. They'll take the shift over at about 7 a.m. Central Time. Steve Bowen and the other voice you'll be hearing on the loops today will be another NASA astronaut, Doug Wheelock, there in the white shirt and the red tie. He'll be the spacewalk choreographer, if you will, relaying the procedures to both Wiseman and Gerst throughout their scheduled 6.5-hour venture outside of the Quest airlock today. And again, they're now inside the room getting ready to take over for this upcoming spacewalk. And quite a bit of tasks are packed in today. The main goal for the 2 astronauts once they go outside will be to replace failed pump module onto a new, more permanent stowage platform. The pump module, which failed last December and was swapped out during 2 EVAs by spacewalkers Rick Mastracchio and Mike Hopkins, has been sitting on a temporary stowage platform, the Payload ORU Accommodation, or you'll commonly referred to as the POA. You'll hear that quite a bit throughout the day. That pump module, which failed and was replaced, is going to get moved over to the external stowage platform 2. Once it's there, it'll be in a more permanent position. It'll be better protected too by a multi-layer insulation blanket should they decide to do a minor repair to the pump module in the future that would then ready it to be used once again. Aside from that task, they'll be installing what's known as a mobile transporter relay assembly. The mobile transport system used to move the station's robotic arm up and down the truss, basically the backbone of the International Space Station, to various work sites. This new relay assembly, and again you're going to hear a lot of acronyms throughout the day, is the MTRA. It's a box that will connect 4 cables and will be able to provide another redundant power stream to the mobile transporter should it get stranded either at or between work sites, which it normally plugs into to get power. This mobile transport relay assembly will be able to provide backup power, so the mobile transport system will be able to move freely in the unlikely event of a power loss. One of the other main tasks for today will be to replace an external light out on the International Space Station. It's on the starboard side of the U.S. Destiny Laboratory. It's a light that's used for any time a visiting vehicle is on approach, or for many of the primary robotic ops. One of the 2 bulbs inside the light failed, so they want to get out there and replace it with a spare before the second bulb were to fail. So that'll be another one of the main tasks today. As mentioned, you'll see Alexander Gerst riding around on the space station's robotic arm. That'll be one of his first tasks, is to set up the foot restraint on the robotic arm and then get himself strapped in, and then he'll be maneuvered around with the pump module to its permanent stowage location by Butch Wilmore, who will be operating from inside, again, the U.S. Destiny Laboratory.
Or is that concerned? Maybe for about 2 seconds.
Houston, just confirm DD1 with fan off and purge valve open.
Sounds good.
So NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore continuing to prep the 2 spacewalking astronauts. Again, Alexander Gerst from the European Space Agency on the left, Reed Wiseman from NASA on the right. Right now they're inside of the Quest Airlock's equipment lock. Once they're done and suited up and ready to go, they'll move out into the crew lock just in the far end of your screen. Close the hatch and get ready to begin the EVA. Official start time will come once they switch their suits over to battery power. And shortly after that, they'll open up the hatch and move out and begin preparing for their first task of the day, which will be, again, that prime task for this Spacewalk EVA 27 to but to relocate the failed pump module. You can see the 3 main tasks here yet again. We'll show you an animation in just a little while that walks through all of the major tasks for the day. But again, it'll be a lot of translating around the outside of the station for the two crew members, a lot of cable routing for them. Again, the spacewalk scheduled to last just about 6.5 hours. So it'll be a pretty interesting time for these first-time spacewalkers, both rookies. And again, we're a little over an hour away from the scheduled start time. Wiseman and Gerst still inside of Quest doing their final suit-up preparations. And Wilmore again inside of Quest, talking right now to Wiseman and Gerst through the loops via their comm system, getting the two ready. As mentioned, this will be the 5th spacewalk for International Space Station crews in 2014. There's already been 3 Russian ones, 2 done by Expedition 40 crew members Alexander Skortsov and Oleg Artemiev, those in June and August. And then one at the beginning of the year by Oleg Kotov and Sergei Rosansky back in January. There was one other U.S. spacewalk, which was done back in late April. Very quick one, only a little over an hour and 36 minutes long, done by Rick Mastracchio and Steve Swanson, where they had to head outside to replace a failed multiplexer demultiplexer, basically a computer relay system responsible for sending commands to a number of external station systems. They also did one quick get-ahead task, but were again outside very short amount of time. The main target of today's spacewalk, the failed pump module, which failed back on December 11th of 2013, was replaced during 2 contingency spacewalks, EVAs 24 and 25, back on December 21st and 24th of last year. Both of those spacewalks were done by NASA astronauts Rick Mastracchio and Mike Hopkins, and they were assisted throughout by former expedition commander Koichi Wakata from the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. The two were able to accomplish in just the 2 spacewalks originally planned for 3, removing the failed pump module and temporarily stowing it on that POA, the Payload ORU Accommodation Unit. POA, a robotically controlled stowage site found on the external part of the station, has held the module since it was placed there last December. Held in place in preparation for this eventual relocation to a more permanent spot, where it'll have some better protection again with that multi-layer insulation blanket, which Wiseman will be responsible for setting up prior to the install of the failed module.
Houston, step 19, I've got 1114.
Copy, 1114.
And again, this will be the 182nd spacewalk in support of International Space Station construction or maintenance. As of right now, there's a total of 1,136 hours and 2 minutes of spacewalking time on the books for the international crews throughout the station's lifetime. Of those, 153 have been based out of station airlocks, whether it be the Quest or the Pirs as the primary airlock over on the Russian segment. A number have been done from internally inside of the Zvezda service module in the earlier life of the International Space Station. There are also 28 shuttle-based spacewalks during the construction phase of the International Space Station.
Good leak check on both, Houston.
Roger.
And Houston, looks like we're at step 14. Wait, you concur?
Houston, concur.
And this is Mission Control Houston Wilmore continuing to work inside of the Quest airlock. Continue preparing Wiseman and Gerst, the mini workstations attached to the front of their EMUs in place. Attached to those, they have a number of tools for manipulating hardware outside of the station, as well as all of their necessary tethers. The next major step in the suit-up process will be for Wilmore to remove the safer units from their stowage bags, begin affixing them to the back of the astronaut spacesuits. SAFER standing for Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue. They're the small jetpack-like devices that get attached to the bottom of the portable life support system on the astronauts' spacesuits, basically the backpack, and are used just in the very unlikely chance that they were to become untethered. The SAFER would allow them to reorient themselves and kind of jet back to safety, safe handhold on the International Space Station. there you can see Wilmore has one of the safer devices ready to install on the back of the suits of each of these astronauts. And so Wiseman will be first up. Wilmore preparing the safer unit against the simplified aid for EVA rescue. It's this small backpack fixture going onto the back of each of these astronaut spacesuits, used as basically their safety net should they become untethered in a very unlikely event. It would allow them to reorient themselves and return to the safety of the International Space Station. Wiseman will be first up, followed by Gerst. Attaching and doing quick checkouts on the safer will be one of the last few tasks for these astronauts before they head out into the crew lock and prepare for depress. Again, the EVA will officially start once their suits are switched over to battery power. At that point, the clock will start ticking for the planned 6.5-hour spacewalk. So Wilmore moving the safer unit into place. It'll be the final addition onto the EMU for each of these crew members before they head outside. Each of these spacesuits weighing a little over 350 pounds, so Luckily, they're in the microgravity environment, so they'll be able to work fairly uninhibited. So again, looking inside the Quest airlock right now, Wilmore affixing the safer unit to the back of fellow NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman's spacesuit. Alexander Gerst will be up next. Wilmore, one of the 3 newest crew members on board the International Space Station, just arrived back on September 25th after launching from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Wiseman and Gerst, however, have been on board since late May. They'll be coming home in early November, but first get this spacewalk in for them. Wiseman and Wilmore will be doing the second spacewalk scheduled for October 15th. At that point, Gerst will switch into Wilmore's role of supporting for suit up. So NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman moving into the crew lock portion of the Quest airlock. His safer unit now affixed. Inside you can see a number of bags floating. They'll bring out about 4 bags full of supplies for their spacewalking tasks. 2 will be used for the installation of the mobile transporter relay assembly, one containing the assembly itself, another containing a couple of cables. Another bag will have the spare light, which will be replaced. One more bag, the 4th, will have some tools for translating and installing the pump module. One of the first tasks once they're out the door will be to range and temporarily stow each of these bags to free themselves up to begin moving around the outside of the station and completing their tasks. And now Butch Wilmore bringing the second safer unit into view. He'll be affixing this one onto the back of Alexander Gerst's spacesuit. Reed Wiseman already suited up, ready and floating inside of the crew lock. Once both are moved inside, Wilmore will be able to close the hatch between the equipment lock and the crew lock, and then one of the next steps will be to begin depressurizing the outside. Again, once the astronauts are finished and they switch their suits over to battery power, the clocks will start running for the 6.5-hour spacewalk. Butch Wilmore continuing to fix the safer unit to the back of Alexander Gerst. You can see him giving the wave there. This will be Gerst's first spacewalk, Wiseman's as well. Gerst is suited up in EMU 3003. It's the newest spacesuit to arrive on board the International Space Station, being carried up by SpaceX's Dragon back in April of this year. Wiseman in suit 3010. We should be getting helmet cam views shortly after the beginning of the spacewalk. You'll see a small number in the lower corner. Reed Wiseman will be helmet cam number 17, Alexander Gerst helmet cam number 20. And once they move over into the crew lock, we'll shortly start hearing audio from both as well. Once the EVA begins, Butch Wilmore will move over to the robotics workstation inside of the Destiny laboratory. He'll be responsible for operating the robotic arm. And Doug Wheelock here in Mission Control Houston will take over as the main choreographer for the spacewalk, relaying any instructions or answering any questions that may arise throughout the planned 6.5-hour EVA. And so with the safer unit affixed, Alexander Gerst being moved inside of the crew lock. Joy and Reed Wiseman are already in there waiting for him. So right now, Butch Wilmore doing some final checks, some safety checks, looking for water in the helmet for both crew members, and then he'll move to close the hatch between the crew lock and the equipment lock. And then they'll be able to begin the slow process of depressurizing the crew lock and getting these astronauts ready to open up the hatch and begin their spacewalk. Here inside Mission Control Houston, the Orbit 2 team will be supporting throughout the spacewalk this afternoon. Everyone's done with their handovers and have taken the console positions. And the flight director for today's spacewalk will be Scott Stover. Some of the other people that you'll see or hear in the room will be the two astronauts currently seated at the Capcom positions. The first, Steve Bowen, who will be responsible for talking to the crew on board. And then Doug Wheelock, there at the top of the screen in the white shirt, will be responsible for choreographing and talking Wiseman and Gerst throughout their spacewalk today. Also inside the room supporting is the lead spacewalk officer, Jacqueline Kagi. She and her team supporting the room through numerous back rooms, monitoring the spacesuit, all the procedures, responsible for feeding information to the flight team throughout. So again, Will Moore doing those final checks. He'll be closing the airlock momentarily. We won't have video for quite some time though, so we'll stand by. Depress should be starting within the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. In the meantime, we're going to bring you an animation, walk you through all of the steps of this upcoming 6.5-hour spacewalk. This was narrated by lead spacewalk officer for EVA 27, Jacqueline Kagi. So why don't we take a look at that now while we wait for the beginning of US EVA 27.
US EVA 27 will start from the Quest airlock. Reed Wiseman, EV1, wearing a suit with red stripes, will egress first. Alexander Gerst, EV2, wearing a plain white suit, will hand out bags. And then after completing buddy checks, Alex will head to the starboard cedar cart to temp stow the MTRA bags for later use. Reed will translate to ESP2 to prepare the pump module install worksite. He will temp stow bags and then open the thermal blanket to allow for the pump module installation. Meanwhile, Alex will translate to the port cedar cart to retrieve the APFR, or the Articulating Portable Foot Restraint. Which he will translate to the SSRMS installation location on S0P1 interface. EV2 will install the foot restraint on the arm, swap his safety tether, and then ingress for his tasks. At this point, Reed will translate to the MTRA bags that Alex carried out. And move them to the MTRA worksite to prepare for the task later in the EVA. There are two bags. One contains the MTRA box itself, and the second bag contains the 4 extension cables that they will install. Then EV1 will translate to EV2's safety tether and gather it and relocate it to ESP2. Alex rides the arm, which is flown by Butch Wilmore, to the POA to retrieve the pump module. The POA is a robotically controlled stowage site that we placed the pump module on during last December's EVAs. During the arm maneuver, Alex will rotate the pump module 180 degrees to get it to the correct installation orientation. And please note that the arm maneuver shown here is greatly sped up. Reed will help guide Butch and Alex to install the pump module partially onto ESP2. He will then remove the adjustable grapple bar, or AGB, from the pump module and temp stow it. And the crew will complete the final installation of the pump module, and they will use the PGT to drive the 4 bolts to secure it. At this point, the EV crew work together to stow the AGB on a spare ORU on ESP2. And the AGB is the method that was able to attach the pump module to the POA for that long. Reed then hands Alex his spare light bag. And while the arm flies Alex toward his next task, Reed will clean up the pump module worksite, including closing the thermal cover flap. Alex is flown to camera port 13, which is on the starboard side of the lab. He will first lock the camera pan and tilt unit, and then remove the failed light. EV2 will retrieve the spare light from his MLI bag. Install it with a single bolt in the electrical connector. Alex will then retrieve the handling aid used to install the light, and then he will unlock the pan and tilt unit prior to leaving the worksite. During this time, EV1 returns the pump module bag to the airlock. And proceeds to translate to the MTRA worksite. The MTRA worksite is on the zenith side of the MT. When Reed gets into position, he will remove the dead face connector that has protected the camera port since 8A. Then he will install the MTRA using the PGT. Reed will gather the red-yellow cable set and attach one end to the MTRA box, then route and mate the yellow connector, and continue down the port side of the MT to the nadir MT location to mate the red cable. Alex will fly back to ESP2 to clean up the SSRMS, including a safety tether swap, and removal of the APFR. He then releases the SSRMS from support for the rest of the EVA. And he will translate back to the airlock to stow the failed light inside the airlock. Alex then translate to the MTRA worksite to join Reed. EV2 will work the starboard side of the MTRA where EV1 worked the port. Alex will gather the blue-green cable and mate the connectors to the MTRA. He will route the cables down the starboard side of the MT and install the green connection, and then hand off the blue connection for Reed to complete at his work site. The crew will then translate back to the zenith side of the MT, making sure to secure all their wire ties to keep the cables out of the MT translation path. At this point, they will clean up their bags and return to the airlock. They will ingress the airlock, completing US EVA 27 and the nominal tasks.
This is Mission Control Houston. Welcome back inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. While that animation was playing, depress of the crew lock has begun. It's starting at 6:59 a.m. Central Time. Once the depressurization of the Quest airlock is completed, the two spacewalkers will be able to switch their spacesuits to battery power and will officially begin US EVA 27. Now, though, they're just a few steps in to the depress. They'll have a hold built in once they hit 5 psi inside of the Quest airlock. They'll do a quick leak check on their spacesuits, and then they'll be able to continue the depress. Also, while the animation was playing, we verified good comms, so you'll now be hearing
500 for 259. Passing 400 for 259.
you're hearing status calls being relayed down by Expedition crew member Butch Wilmore. First built-in hold is at 5 psi, or 259 millimeters of mercury. That will be the pressure inside of the crew lock where Wiseman and Gerst are currently floating. Once they hit that 5 psi hold point, they'll do some quick leak checks on their suits, verify everything with Mission Control Houston, and then open up the valve again and continue the depressurization.
Passing 359 for 259. 100 to go. Alex, how about give me a comm check?
Got you loud and clear, buddy.
Okay, when I give you the call, you'll be taking the depress pump mine ISO valve to close. We've got another 80 to go, though.
Copy. We'll go.
For 259.
Copy.
For 259.
Valve is closed.
Okay, display status until leak check question mark is displayed. 2 seconds and follow the displayed instructions.
EVA 1.
With the crew lock now at 5 psi and holding. Wiseman and Gerst conducting their leak checks. Once these checks are done and cleared successfully, they'll resume the depressurization of the Quest airlock.
Let me know when you're complete.
EV1, leak check complete. Send O2 to EVA. I'm switching it over. EV2, leak check complete. Switching over to EVA.
Let me know when you're in EVA.
Gonna take EV1 a couple more minutes. EV2 is in EVA. And EV1 is in EVA.
Real nice work, guys. Houston, if you agree, we'll pick up at step 10. Houston Airlock, picking up in step 10.
And airlock Houston, just hold for 1 moment. And airlock Houston, you have a go for step 10. And we have you back with video.
Outstanding. Welcome aboard. Okay, Alex, step 10, here we go. Depress pump, mine ISO open, and I'm going to open emergency EV.
Depress
Trigger
pump, mine
60
ISO
gauge,
is open.
less than 5.5. If it goes above it, we'll stop the depress.
EV1, EV2.
Okay, passing 250 for 103. Guys, so you know, just a reminder, at 103, we'll be closing the main ISO valve, turn the pump off, but the depress will continue because the emergency MPV is still open.
EV1, EV2.
Like I said, as we go through this, check and make sure that your right waist tether is attached to the UIA.
Checking again. Okay, glitch, I can see my right waist tether coming from my right D-ring extender to the right UIA D-ring. Both hooks are closed and locked. Locked.
Deal. And Reed, you can check that your waist tether is connected to the extender. Close the lock.
Okay, from my right D-ring extender, my small hook is closed and locked, and my waist tether goes to the D-ring extender. My big hook is closed and locked.
Good check. 45 for 103, Alex.
Copy.
And so inside the airlock, the depressurization continuing, coming up on 2 psi.
Alex, take the deep press pump man ISO to closed.
Depress pump man isolation valve is closed.
UIA, you can switch the deep press pump power to off.
Depress pump power is OFF.
Continuing the depress, we're at 98. You've already gotten a double check on your tethers. And Tonto, I'll keep calling out the pressure. Right now we're at 95, but the next note says when the crew lock is about 0, you can expect an alert tone.
Copy that, Bush.
When the hatch is delta P is less than 0.5, and that'll be 26, and I'll give you a call, you can open the hatch and stow it.
Copy that.
Right now we're coming through 90.
Alex, I'm going to be moving around a little bit here. Yeah, just push me out of the way.
Okay.
Your position's great right now.
This is a slow portion.
EVA Officer Jacqueline Kagi reporting the suit's in a good config, getting closer to 0 psi inside the crew lock, at which Shortly after that, the two astronauts, Wiseman and Gerst, will be able to switch their suits to battery power and officially begin US EVA 27.
$75. $60.
So again, continuing to stand by. The depressurization in the final stages now. Pretty soon the hatch will be open and the crew will soon get the go to switch over to battery power. Butch Wilmore still supporting from inside the equipment lock inside the Quest airlock. He'll soon be moving over to the Destiny laboratory where he'll be operating the station's robotic arm. He'll be responsible for flying Alexander Gerst around the station once he gets the failed pump module from its temporary stowed position on the POA. And just getting the status call, the crew lock now at 1 psi. Getting very close to that hatch open and then switch to battery power and the start of US EVA 27.
$48 for 26.
Sounds good, Butch. My PFID gauge is just coming under 1 now.
Copy. 39 for 26.
Status call from Wilmore, 39 millimeters of mercury heading towards 26, or just around half of a PSI. At that point, the crew will get the go to open up the hatch.
Tonto, it's 34 for 26. You can just tell me when you're less than 0.5.
All right, we got a ways to go, Butch. I'm looking at about 0.8 now. I could use parallax to our advantage and call it 0.6, but I'll look straight on.
Copy.
Hey, Butch, just give me a call when your numbers look good.
Wilco. 31 now.
Hey, Alex, how many little spoons did you find this morning? 3? It was. Not bad. Hey, Butch, we're coming under 0.6 now.
Copy.
So just a few moments away from that 0.5 checkpoint. Once the crew locks at half of a PSI.
Excellent Russian. At least there.
They'll be able to open up the hatch.
No, you're okay. We're not quite there yet, Butch. I'll give it just a couple minutes, another minute, and I'll go for the hatch.
Sounds good, Tonto.
Your pressure's still going down?
Affirmative.
Okay.